Hey guys, Ginger here. Welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be talking about 5 thriller tropes that I think need to stop. So today we're talking about thriller tropes because I recently saw someone post a tweet that was talking about a trope that they thought just was horrible in thriller books, and it made me start to think about tropes that I don't like in thriller books, which thrillers are one of my favorite genres, so I read them a lot, and it definitely means that I've gotten a lot of tropes that I could do without, and I'm planning to read lots of thrillers in the month of October, so I thought this was good timing, and it would be hopefully a fun video. I'm sure I have a longer list of tropes that I don't like, but for the necessity of not having an hour-long video, I narrowed it down to 5 of my big ones to talk about right now. So, without further ado, let's just get into talking about the things that I don't like. So, the first trope that I could do without is the whole perfect life trope. In a lot of thriller books, we have characters who they portray them as having the perfect life, perfect job, marriage, family, all this fun stuff. And then, obviously, throughout the book, we find out that they're not perfect and they have issues. Surprise, surprise. I don't like this trope just because nobody is perfect. And even if you think that somebody is having a good time, we live in a society now that we know about mental health. We know about issues in relationships and whatnot. So we kind of we hope that they're doing well, but it doesn't mean they're doing well. And so I just think that is such an unrealistic trope that bothers me, especially whenever it's in the summary that they are just having the perfect time, because obviously not. That obviously we would have a thriller if not. And this tends to be a lot of domestic thrillers, so we shy away from this kind of stuff usually in more murder mysteries and whatnot, but they can still be there. And I just have found that I prefer books where we have a middle class character or family and they have to go through issues, because that's much more relatable. I've never been high class or having the perfect life, so it's just also unrelatable to me. The second trope that I'm going to talk about is plot twists that seem pushed in a book. And bear with me, when I say this, I mean plot twists that seem out of place. They seem unrealistic, they shouldn't be in that novel. And more I feel like I'm seeing this, and I think that authors are doing it to get the shock factor instead of actually making the plot flow. Maybe they think it does flow, but in these situations, for me as a reader, I feel very unconnected from the plot and the twists in many situations. And I think that unexpected twists are awesome. If, I'm oh, I should have seen that coming, but I didn't, or that makes so much sense now. Those are good unexpected twists. But if I just can't wrap my head around why that happened, I don't think that's a good plot twist. I think that it should flow and be surprising. And there's just been a lot of books recently that I read where the plot twist is just doesn't make sense, and that is really annoying. So for those authors who are just trying to get the shock value and not really making it work, that is always something that bothers me in a thriller, because I actually like novels for the plot too, so making sure that it coincides is something that's really important to me. The third trope that I want to talk about is memory loss in thrillers. I have read a lot of books where the characters have lost their memory somehow, and that is pretty much the entire plot of the book, because we are trying to figure out what they have forgotten, and that's the twist. Sometimes this is good. Sometimes this is more of the character has blocked it out of their mind, and then sometimes it's they have a concussion or they've hit their head too hard and they forget. And all of those could be played out well, but it is completely overdone, and many times it is not done well. Even though it has the potential to, doesn't mean it does. So what I mean by this is when a character loses their memory, and then in the book we have to follow along with them and try to figure out what they've forgotten and what the mystery is that is usually what caused their memory loss. And a lot of times this is like a car accident. I think that this has potential to be good, but I am getting so sick and tired of it. I've read so many books where this has happened, and it, again, like the first trope I talked about, it tends to be in domestic thrillers. Like, I think that domestic thrillers tend to have this like formula that everyone like picks and chooses from to put into it, and this is fine, but it also makes for a lot of books with lots of tropes, and so they are overdone, in my opinion. And so memory loss is one that I could do without right now. I just think that we are getting way too much of it. Trope number 4 is marriage issues, and this is the one that someone had tweeted about, and I totally agree with them. Lots of thrillers, again, domestic thrillers, have, I'm not saying that murder ones don't either, but I'm just saying from my experience. We have characters that their relationship's on the rocks, their marriage, their whatever. We have a woman and a husband, usually that is the scenario, and they just have grown away from each other and they're having problems and whatnot. And this also tends to lead to things that I personally also don't like cheating and stuff, because obviously there's just issues with cheating. And so this tends to be something prominent in books and has a lot to do with the plot. And a lot of times we have like the characters don't trust each other, and some of this comes from the fact that they are pulled away from each other. They're not close-knit enough to trust each other. And I just think that it is overdone and something that we don't need. I think you can have a perfectly good thriller novel with a couple that actually likes each other and gets along. And I think having a strong relationship in a thriller would make it all the more enjoyable, in my opinion, because that's just good. Like, good relationships are good, and being able to relate to characters is good. And I think that having marital issues in thrillers adds a whole new level of depression, like depressingness to it. And there's been plenty of times where I read books, thriller books, with like trust issues with their partner and all sorts of stuff, and it makes me feel bad, like, and worried about my own relationship, because they just write it in a way that is negative. And so that is the main reason I don't like it, is like all the negativity, and also I just think it's repetitive and overdone, so that's why I could definitely do without it. And then the last one, number 5, is probably my biggest dislike in thrillers and tropes, and that is the pregnancy issues. So many books that I read that are thrillers have a character, main or side, who cannot get pregnant or is having issues getting pregnant, and this is part of the plot. Whether that makes them crazy, whether that means that they get an adoption, all this stuff, it leads to the plot. And I think that it is something that is overdone and inconsiderate in a way, because portraying someone who is having trouble getting pregnant as a crazy person is awful. There's tons of people who deal with this and like miscarriages and all this stuff. And like, I get that you can get depressed, but the way that they incorporate it into a thriller makes it seem bad sometimes. And I hate that. And the fact that things can't happen without this person having a problem because they can't get pregnant, or like this causes their marital issues, like from the last trope, I cannot stand it. And honestly, every time that that plot element appears in a book, I automatically start to dislike it a little bit. And there's been plenty of times where this trope has appeared in a book and it might have been a great thriller otherwise, but because of that, I have to give it a lesser star rating. And I just do not like that trope, and I think that is way overused and could not only be written better, but just not utilized. I think that you can find other issues to write a thriller book for. So that's just my 2 cents, but that is probably my biggest trope that I dislike in thriller novels. So what did you guys think of my list? Do you agree, disagree? Do you have other tropes that you guys despise in thriller novels? Are you a thriller reader? All questions I have for you. So don't be shy, leave comments below and we can have a discussion. But I hope you guys also enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button to see more of my content in the future and probably more thrillery related videos. But until my next video is posted, I will see you guys then. Bye!